Blog Talk Radio.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Franchise Interviews, Asking the Entrepreneur Who Owns One. I'm your host, Marty McDermott, with my co-host, Don Johnson. And if you've ever dreamed about owning your own business, then this is a show to listen to. And today we have two very special guests. We're meeting with Patel and Craig Auberger of First Inspection Services Franchise Opportunity. And Don, I think you're up.
Yeah, guys, talk a little bit about training for your franchise. Now, you mentioned them having to do a certain amount of inspections before they can become a franchisee. I think you mentioned it was 80, but I'm sure there's other stuff involved. Maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
Most definitely. When we get an application in, we start with, and I'm kind of going even further back than what you're asking, but typically just even the prerequisites of becoming a franchisee, we're looking for, again, just the type of work that you've been doing in the past, the different types of organizations you've maybe been a part of, just to kind of see if you're a well-rounded person that can make that make this business successful. Once we've gotten past the qualification and we've brought them on as a franchisee, we'll start off with a 4-week training program, of which 3 weeks are done here in Cincinnati at our corporate office. Basically, during that 3-week training period, they are going out in the field with inspectors. They are also working inside the office with taking phone calls, scheduling inspections, how to file all of the paperwork, how to communicate effectively with real estate agents, with buyers, with sellers, because there are a lot of people involved in the transactions, and even mortgage companies. And so we're trying to teach all of our franchisees how to communicate with all different types of people, and just really how to market the business. And it's not so much that we're giving them instruction, but we're actually taking them out and showing them how it's done. Once the 3 weeks of training is finished up here in Cincinnati, then the 4th week we spend at their location, where either personally myself or Craig will go out, and we will physically go out with our franchisee doing marketing, doing the inspection, and just being able to show them how it's done versus just giving them a manual and saying, here, go do it.
Does the franchisee, Cal, rely on the home office for getting leads and lining up inspections, or is that pretty much on their own? And is that something else you look for in a franchisee, someone with that sales background, which is always helpful?
Right. Well, initially we have relationships already established with relocation companies, construction draw companies, lease equipment inspection companies, different types. And so once someone signs on, they are automatically involved with these different companies, and obviously they still have to prove themselves as a individual business that they can perform all of these these tasks and inspections that are required. But we will help with that. As far as advertising, we take care of all the marketing supplies. We take care of doing any of the ad slicks, all of that stuff. So as long as they let us know what dimensions, whatnot, we're able to go ahead and get that sent over. It's not a cookie-cutter template that we use. We try to really personalize it to your market. Because in this industry, from here to New York to San Francisco, we're talking 3 major different markets.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. What is a typical day like, guys, as a First Inspection Services franchisee from the moment you get up till the end of the day? Is there a typical day?
There's, I wouldn't say a typical, but most of the time. The reason I say that is, things can change when you're out there in the field.
Right.
But on an average day, you start out by just looking at your schedule, going out to your first job. Usually we schedule 2 inspections per day per inspector.
Right.
So you'll go out to your first job. Usually takes about 2.5 to 3 hours based on a house of about 2,500 square feet. Once you finish that up, you have an hour in between for some lunch, maybe do some light marketing, run into some offices, drop off some brochures, marketing materials, and then head on to your next inspection. One of the nice things that we do is all of our inspections are done pretty much on site. We have tablet PCs or pocket PCs that we're using. We take lots of digital photographs. Now, we don't prepare our reports right there on site. There's just a little bit more involved than just being able to deliver a standard comment inspection report.
Right.
And so we really like to, again, personalize it. You know, we want to go into the details of the home. We want to be able to share with these potential buyers, sellers, what they need to do, how they need to do it, things of that nature. So by the end of the day, 5 o'clock, you wrap up, head home, and either to home or your office, and you finish up your reports. Could take an hour or two once you've been really trained and experienced with it. And that's a typical day.
That's great. What's been the most interesting thing that's happened to both of you since starting this whole thing?
All right. Well, my most interesting experience was probably about, I'd say 3 years ago. It was August of 2004. My wife, we have 2 children right now, a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old. At the time, we just had the one, and my wife was pregnant with our second one, and I'm kind of making a long story here, but I'll try to make it short. Our expected delivery date was August 20th or something, and so around August 9th, I was actually doing an inspection. I fell off of a roof.
Oh, no.
And it was about a 15-foot drop right onto concrete, and when I got up, I looked at my arm. Pain didn't start, so I thought, okay, this isn't too bad. I broke my arm.
Right.
Blood's coming out because I've got a couple of compound fractures. So
wow.
The fire's up on the roof, and he calls 911. They come out, get me to the hospital. I've called Craig by this time and a couple of my family members, and get to the hospital, and we find out that it's pretty severely damaged. The right wrist was shattered. It looked like broken glass inside.
Oh, God.
And my radial head was completely shattered at my elbow. So I was in the hospital for about 5 days, and I went through about 4 surgeries during that 5-day period. Finished up, got out Friday, probably about 8:30 in the evening. Saturday morning, my wife went into labor. So we were both at the hospital in separate beds.
Oh,
I think you win, Cal. Definitely having the most interesting story.
Yeah, we've
you
got
win.
50 different franchises that question, yeah, and you certainly got that one, Cal.
So we ended up, having a healthy second daughter, and
that's great.
Our children are very healthy now. We're very blessed, and but at that time, everyone around us or me thought that we were going to shut the business down because obviously, being a home inspector, you are your business.
Right.
And so everyone was just anticipating, okay, Cal, when are you shutting down? And I said, no, there's no need to. We've established a name. We've had systems in place. And that's really when we took off on the franchising side and said, let's do this. And it's been amazing. I mean, good things come out of bad things, always.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. And there's the whole beauty of setting up a system, Cal, and you referenced earlier, Michael Gerber, the ability to, you don't necessarily have to be there for your business to run, so that's fantastic. That's great.
And, from my perspective, the most amazing thing about that, too, was, here in Cincinnati, we had just a few number of guys working with us at that point and didn't really have certainly the relationships we do now with the same people 4 years later, but the way that they came to the plate and the way that they jumped in and did more than we could ever think, it was unbelievable because just as you say, fortunately we had systems and things in place. They knew what to do. They did it. They helped Cal recuperate from this, and one thing he's not saying is he had 9 surgeries in all over a period of about 2 years. So, I mean, this was extensive. And the other thing that I thought was extremely amazing is because of my business background in other areas, we have, I stated earlier, our goal is slow, methodical growth, and we are always pulling the chains back, so to speak, on things. I question sometimes where we could be with how many franchises if it were not for that. But ironically, by all that, we have really true good quality people, and our percentage of growth per year is, every year overshoots what we were thinking about anyway. So I mean, it's kind of a paradox, because the more we try to pull the reins back, the better we do. And I think it kind of shows how important it is to be selective in this industry.
Right.
What advice would you guys give to aspiring entrepreneurs looking to buy a franchise? The majority of our listeners are prospective franchisees. Any particular advice stand out as far as what you would recommend?
Well, I think the number one thing is, if you don't have a passion for what you want to do, don't do it.
Right.
Number two, if you decide that you've got the passion, this is something you want to do, go work in that industry for maybe a couple of weeks, a month, just to kind of get your feet wet, see if you even like doing the day-to-day operations, because everything changes daily. We can only tell you what we typically experience, but there are things that happen. Real quick, during an inspection, we actually had one house where someone, we went back to the house to finish up the inspection, and they actually had passed away. So, it's one of those things where you can't really be ready for anything, but if you go out there at least a couple of weeks, get your feet wet, see what it is daily that is going on, I think that would be great. And then number three, definitely read E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, I mean, you're right about that. It's going to become your life. Make sure you're going to like it. I like your point about, working in the business a couple of weeks, at least, yeah. And I guess as the show seems like it's winding down, Marty, you guys maybe talk about First Inspection Services plans for the future.
Well, really, from our perspective, we would really like to attempt to grow at this pace, as many perhaps as maybe 5 locations a year. I can tell you, Don, that we really, we've just recently had 2 people contact us and talk to us sincerely about a potential purchase down the road. And I guess what I'm trying to say is you never know what might transpire in that regard. But our goal right now is to keep doing what we've been doing, and we feel the sky's the limit.
Right. And like you've talked about throughout the show, just find those solid people, are going to be a very strong addition.
Right. Guys, we have about 15 seconds. What's the best way for someone to get more information on your franchise or your services?
2 ways, either calling us at 1-800-944-7211 or visiting our website, www.firstinspections.com. And the first is not spelled out. It's actually the number 1 ST.
Absolutely. And I want to thank you guys. You guys have been fantastic guests, and I'd like to have you back on a future show next year, and then we'll talk about the growth of your franchise, because I think you guys are certainly onto something.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. It was a pleasure being on the show with you guys.
Absolutely, and we'll look forward to that.
Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great Feel better, Craig. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks, Take care. Bye-bye. Great concept, huh, Don?
Yeah.
I like this slow growth, process. We've had other franchises, that have had that attitude on the show, too. They're very, very selective as far as who they're going to select as a franchisee, so I think that's great.
Just like Juice Stop last week, yeah.
He kind of had the same theme,
Right.
He didn't want to, rush at, selling a lot of franchises. He wanted to make sure he had the right person on board,
Exactly, so important, yeah.
Absolutely. So another great show, Don, and
good job, Marty.
Next week we have a very big show. We got the guru in franchising, George Native, so you don't want to miss that. And for our listeners, go to franchiseinterviews.com, and what other websites should we direct them to, Don?
Well, of course, franchisefunding.net.
Okay.
We've been talking about recently for people who want to know their financing options and getting pre-qualified. There's our company site, easysba.com, EASYSBA.com.
Okay, great. And I guess we'll be talking next week, Don.
Definitely. Have a good rest of the week, Marty.
You too. Thanks, Don. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.